Hello and welcome to Red Book Joy. Today I want to talk to you about Me, My Dad and the End of the Rainbow by Benjamin Dean. If you're new to the channel, I'm Jack and I share lots of children's books for school or home because I'm a qualified primary school teacher and I like to share children's books. So I also talk about my own reading and I tend to do that on Saturdays. But today's Wednesday and it's a review video day. So I just finished Me, My Dad and the End of the Rainbow and it's nicely coincidental. It's Pride Month and this book is an LGBTQ plus middle grade book. I'll talk to you about the synopsis in a moment, but the reason it's been bumped to Pride Month is just a coincidence for me. I bought it back in February when it was released. I was very excited about it. It was a really exciting release coming up because, as you may realise, there's really woeful representation for LGBTQ plus in the middle grade category. But it was really exciting. It came out, and then one thing after another, I got, buddy reads and commitments and advanced reader copies that I had to get through, and this got bumped and bumped and bumped. I started reading it in my May vlog, which I'll put a link to, and part of my May vlog was the fact that I'd overcommitted and it got bumped again, and I picked it up again at the start of June, coincidentally Pride Month, but LGBTQ plus books are not just for Pride Month, but it's a happy start for me. I'm going to go through the synopsis a little bit and then tell you a few things because I loved it, but there's one thing really that really, as a teacher, made me go, oh. I'll talk to you about that in a bit, but synopsis. Archie Albright is 12. He lives in some unspecified coastal town in the southeast of England, about an hour from London, and he's going to school. He's got two best friends, Belle and Seb. Well, I'm like, are they Belle and Sebastian? Like the characters named after. Belle is a girl. She's really outgoing and adventurous. Seb is a boy. He's really small and he's really anxious and nervous all the time. And Archie's kind of somewhere in the middle. So it's kind of a nice spectrum of personality types within the book. Archie's mum and dad have recently split up, and Archie is seeing his dad. His dad comes to pick him up for their regular weekly visit to the arcade once a week that they used to do anyway when dad was living at home with them. And dad's been a bit strange lately, he's been a bit on edge. And Archie discovers, through an argument that mum and dad are having, because they're still at that stage, they're still arguing, things are still fraught between mum and dad, that dad is gay. So he overhears them arguing about it, but then dad sits him down and tells him that he's gay. And it's a really awkward scene actually, because Archie doesn't know what to say. He may have questions, but he probably doesn't even know, he's not processed them yet. Dad's obviously been building up to saying this and doesn't quite know how to deal with it all. It's all, it's done in a kind of realistic way actually, I think. But mum's still clearly reeling from the fact that they're getting divorced and obviously finding out that her ex-partner is gay, and she's trying to help support Archie, but mum and dad are still arguing a bit. So Archie's very confused about everything and he's down about it because his dad is acting really awkwardly around him, so they're sort of really becoming estranged and it's really upsetting Archie. Not the fact that dad is gay, it's just the change element. And I think I need to stress that here because there are characters within the book who are gay. Being gay isn't the issue, it's that it's a parent who's changed. And that's like anything, isn't it? Because when parents are supposed to be, children think their parents are eternal and they think their parents' relationships are eternal, and any change that happens with a parent is earth-shattering to a child. And that's what this is about. And he doesn't want things to change. And he speaks to a friend at school who is older, who's called Oscar, who is gay. And Oscar says, well, nothing's different, nothing's changed. But whilst that is the case, that dad is the same person, there is some period of adjustment that's got to happen, I assume. And that's what this kind of book is about, in a sense. So dad's really struggling and dad's getting more and more depressed. And it's clear from overheard snippets of conversation that his friends aren't taking the news brilliantly. Maybe his family aren't as well. Archie finds a flyer in his dad's car for Pride in London, and so he decides, and this is one thing I'm like, oh, I'm not sure why this would help, but it's the whole point of the story. He decides to bunk to London on the train with his friends, which is an hour away, and go to Pride. Now, this is the bit that I had the issue with because as a teacher, the thought of children getting lost in London just freaks me out because I work in London as a teacher and London's a dangerous place, it's full of people, and I was reading this with my heart in my mouth a lot of the time, which I know it's a kid's book and it was all going to turn out all right in the end, but I don't like the idea of giving children the impression that it's okay to do that, and it doesn't do that. They talk about the dangers of it. I'll come to that in a sec. But anyway, when they do go to Pride, that's what's so lovely. The representation in it, the imagery, the picture that's painted of the joy, and all the beautiful costumes and the parade and everything else is really brought to life in this book, which I think is wonderful. So the three children also remind us by reading, because they don't know what Pride is. They go into it, they're not sure what LGBT stands for, what the plus is for. There's no Q in the book, just plus. And they want to find these things out, and it explains all of these things in this book, which I thought was brilliant. And they remind us that Pride started as a protest, and that there is still a fight going on around the world for many members of the LGBT plus community who are still fighting for basic human rights. And I thought that was really important. It also talked about, you know, what does lesbian mean, what does gay mean, what's bisexual, what's transgender, and then what the plus part is there for. And I thought it was a really great description of Pride, but I thought it was really good learning and really good information for children of this age. And I thought it was really well done. And Pride is about family and being accepted by a chosen family. And Benjamin Dean, the author, he writes that in his explanatory notes at the back. The first time he went to Pride, he came from a town where he didn't have any LGBTQ plus friends, and the first time he went to Pride is the first time he looked around and felt part of something. The thing that I didn't love, and this is a spoiler, so if you don't want spoilers, I'll put some timestamps in the description so you can skip this part, but they lose one of the children. They lose Seb, they find Oscar and Dean on the train to London. So Oscar is his older friend that is gay, and they meet Oscar and his boyfriend on the train to London, and Oscar usually babysits for Archie, and they lose them as soon as they get out of this train station in London, which can happen because it's so busy, especially if it's Pride. And then they lose him, then they lose Seb, and they meet some drag queens who help them out, but they don't know. And he even says in the book, you shouldn't, don't trust strangers like what we did, but we did trust these guys, which I think was a bit of a weird message. I don't know. The whole book couldn't have happened without this setup and this scenario. And they lose Seb, and this is based on the fact that Benjamin Dean himself got lost at Disneyland when he was a kid, so he kind of bases this around what happened to him then. But the adults that they meet, like, all I kept thinking, and this is just personal because as a teacher, the first thing you do if a child goes missing, first thing you do before you do anything is call the police. And no one did that. No one called the police. Like, no one logged this. This child was missing for 3 hours and no one called the police. So it kind of stuck in my throat a little bit. But I can see it was for the point of the story, but it just made me feel really nervous and anxious this whole time, even though I knew it's a middle grade book, it's going to turn out fine. But I don't think that's the right message to give. But aside from that, I love everything else about this book. I look forward to reading more by this author because he was really, really wonderful actually. I really enjoyed his writing style. I don't need to tell you that LGBTQ plus representation is woeful in children's books. It really is. However, there is a kind of small wave of change happening. This is such a wonderful book to come out. I was so excited to see it coming out because the representation in it is wonderful. It explains a bit about Pride, so there's a bit of history of Pride in there. There are drag queens. They see a pink, blue and white flag, and Archie says, I must Google that later, which will probably get children to Google it, which is the transgender flag. And there's a whole spectrum and range of people at Pride, and it's just wonderful because it just shows you that there are so many ways to love and so many families, and that it's really celebrated in this book. If you are interested in more LGBTQ plus middle grade books, Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin, who is the king of middle grade, has a brilliant video that he released recently. I don't know if he did it for Pride Month or he's just released it, but he lists all his favourite LGBTQ plus middle grade books. I would definitely advise going to watch that video because it's got some brilliant titles in there. Some I've read, some I haven't, some I plan to. So if you like this, please click like, please comment. If you've got any suggestions for LGBTQ plus children's books, please put those in the comments below. I'd love to hear about them, and I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please click subscribe and ring the bell so you know when my next videos are up, and I'll see you again here soon. Bye!